It's a DIY Saturday kind of a day, and I thought I would show you my tips and tricks for making your own ears as we make these Stitch Pride ears. So hurry back.
Just an 80s boy and a 90s teen, going on all things Disney, from mouse to parks and in between. Come share the magic with me. La 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 la. Live your life to a Disney tune. Come and share Jake's Disney Afternoon.
Hey Disney Afternoon gang, welcome back to my channel and thanks for returning. And if you're new here, my name is Jake and I do all kinds of Disney content, including subscription boxes, swaps, hauls, vintage, trivia, the occasional DIY. If it's Disney, we're doing it. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next Disney adventure. Okay, gang, it is Pride Month, and I thought I would make some Pride ears for us to go along. But more importantly, I thought I would show you the method that I use to make your very own Disney ears. You're not good with a needle, you say? You're not great with a sewing machine? Neither am I. But can you cut and can you glue? Well, this project then is for you. So let me show you what I've got here on my table. Then I'm gonna flip camera angle so you can watch me step by step of the way so you can make your own Disney ears. So the rundown is you're gonna need your pattern. I downloaded this from D23. They have like a little PDF kit. I'll leave it linked down below. Lots of ear patterns out there, but this is the one that I use. You need some cardboard. This is a unused pizza box. Amazon boxes work well because they're usually thin, but thin is the name of the game. So it's a thin piece of cardboard. You're gonna need your headband. I will leave the link to the ones that I buy. These come out to like $1 each or something like that. They also come in a multicolor pack. I'm using a black one today. Got my ribbon and my cord here. We're gonna come to that in a little bit. I've got scissors, glue sticks, my glue gun, and of course I've got my pile of fabrics. Not quite sure exactly the combination I'm gonna do, so a lot of times I pull out a bunch of fabrics and kind of play as I go along. We'll talk about that more, and then you're gonna need some classic stuffing. So, not a lot of supplies. I think that's everything. Let me flip camera angles and let's get started making our very own ears. Okay, so here we are. I have cleared the decks a little bit. I've got my cardboard. I've got a couple cut out here already, so I'm going to use that as my pattern. It is easier than my little paper pattern. Cat, I'm making things. You're fine. So we're going to trace these. I only need 2 more. You're going to need 4 of these semicircles for your completed ears. So cut 4 of them out. Sometimes if you're gonna make a lot, I tend to do this in stages where I will cut a lot of cardboard and then a lot of fabric, etc., etc. Just to make it easier on the process. Okay, so there we've got 2 more, and I usually go through and squish it a little bit, kind of deflate the corrugated part. These are pretty thin, but I like them to be a little bit malleable so that they're a little soft. You want the structure, but you want some flexibility. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute when we add our fabric. So I just go, you know, trace the edges and then do a few pinches in the middle. It's tiring on your hands, so if you have little hands sitting around watching TV, this is a good project for them to do once you've got these cut. Okay, so now that we have our 4 pieces of cardboard, let's talk about our fabric. So I've got quite a few things. I've got this sort of paw print rainbow pattern. I've got a Mickey rainbow. I've got some Stitch. Got this very multicolored polka dot and some throwback 80s Care Bears, which I thought was super cute. So after kind of looking through things, I'm thinking One of the things sometimes I do is I'll take a I'll take one of these squares with me to the fabric store. And this pattern, you can really cut out one solid section of it without having overlap, so it almost looks very organic to the ear. And this says Ohana means family, family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Love that for Pride Month. So I thought I would do 2 of these on the front as the lead, and then I thought I would back it with this, very colorful. And then I thought, because we are using stitch, maybe I would do this paw print in honor of Stitch, kind of being the family dog there. These fat quarters are fun. You can get these almost anywhere, and they come in a lot of really great patterns or a good price. I would definitely check those out. So now that we have figured that out, let me put the rest of this fabric away. I'm gonna put the bow fabric aside for a minute. Let's do one of these at a time. So the trick with this cutting the fabric, let's see, let me go on this side, is you're gonna wanna leave some room around, and you know, unfortunately when you're trying to center a pattern to an ear, there is some waste. That's just how it goes. For instance, this piece is too tight to the corner for me to use over here. So I'm gonna have to bop over to this one. I'm gonna center my ear around, you know, and that's actually too close because there is the threaded part there. So I'm gonna bump over to this one, and I'm gonna center this to the ear. I'm gonna take my marker, and we're gonna draw, you know, 3/4 of an inch or so around. This can be a little bit loose. Honestly, this doesn't have to be perfect. What really matters is that you've got enough room around and that your image is centered on the fabric. So I'm going to take one more. I'll pop up here to this one. So as you can see, I save the scraps because you never know, you know, when you're going to need it for a ribbon center or something else. Some of the scraps are sizable enough that they might be worth something. So there we go. We've got our pattern drawn. Now I use a different pair of scissors. These are my fabric scissors than I do for cutting out the cardboard because they will dull, and I want the fabric to be accurate. So I buy some cheapy scissors. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut these out. The line doesn't matter because it will get tucked away and hidden inside the ear. So this is a project that covers kind of all the secrets and all the hidden tricks that we're going to do today. Let me cut these. So with a repeated pattern that doesn't have an image to center, you can be a little bit more cautious with your fabric. So you just want to give yourself enough room there to draw kind of right to the edge. So there we have our 4 ear pieces, and before we get to ironing them, let's talk about our bow. I'm gonna take this off. The thing I like about this fabric, when thinking about, you know, sort of complementary bow choices, is that it still lives in this multicolored world, but the black fabric kind of grounds it a little bit and makes it less competition with itself. So a lot of times I'll go through and hold up patterns just to see the balance. This was the other idea I had for the bow, and I think it's too busy. Even though it has a dark background, the small dots kind of distract my eye. So I'm gonna go with this one. Now I have made myself a bow pattern because I got tired of measuring. So I have my, this is just a piece of foam that's seen a few things. But this is 10 by 13. That may be too big for some people. It may be just the right thing. There are different, bow options. I'm gonna just show you one today, but feel free, you should check out, let me do this on the back. Check out other videos on making very specific kinds of bows. So unfortunately this fat quarter is not level at the bottom. Sometimes you can get it to level off a little bit. It is level on the side here. Sorry, we'll just trim around it. Sometimes you can draw on the front of the fabric. Sometimes if it's too dark, flop to the back, especially in something that is repeated. So if you're going to make lots of them, I would recommend making a bow pattern. Otherwise, you can use a ruler and straight edge and just kind of measure out. I saw a tutorial yesterday. Somebody made a 9 by 11 bow, and I thought that was cute. She also made foam center ears, which are, in my opinion, a little smaller because they're not as stuffed, so maybe a smaller bow is appropriate for them. Okay, so now I've got all of my pieces. I need to take these to the ironing board, iron these creases out and get them nice and smooth. I'm not going to show that. I assume you know how to iron, but then I will be right back and we will go on to the next step. While you're ironing, I should say, good opportunity to plug in your glue gun and get it ready so that you are ready to go for the next step. Okay, so I have my ears are ironed. I've put my bow piece aside for now because we're going to focus on these. I've got my cardboards here, got my glue gun plugged in. You're going to want a nice little pile of glue sticks. It takes more glue sticks than you might imagine. So let's start with one of these. I take a small amount of the fluff as a base. Just a little coat there. Kind of try to even it out a little bit before sticking it. So then let me show you this one first, because the repeated patterns are easier. So you're going to want to, I try to hold this in a little bit and center my piece. And I want to push down on this because what I want at the end after I've glued the pieces back is I want the tension of the fabric, because it's going to keep everything tight and everything taut. So you're going to start at one corner here and you're just going to pipe a line of glue, maybe a third of the way around, give or take. And then you're just going to fold your fabric in and just kind of slide it, being aware to not fold it. You want everything kind of evenly spaced out here, and you just push down on the glue, pulling it taut, keeping the pressure on this because you want everything pulling a little bit with you. And then we go tuck under, and we go maybe the next third of the way around or so, and then grab here and start to pull and tuck, pull and tuck, pull and tuck, and then just kind of smudge the glue so that you get a nice flat line around the top. Okay. Now if your fingers are sensitive, they do have finger protectors. If you're used to working with glue, then you've probably built up some calluses. And now let's finish this off a little bit. You're just going to continue to pull and tuck there a little bit. Okay, so that's the back. That's the front. Got our nice design. Now, that's not enough stuffing for me. That's just a baseline. So I take that and I actually kind of work it a little bit into the edges, and I take more stuffing until I'm happy really with the fluffiness of it. And that's of course a personal opinion. Some people like them super fluffy. The good news is this is really taut. So you're not gonna need a lot of fluff to make it feel like it's stretching and pushing the fabric out a little bit, because you've tightened it up quite a bit. And working it into the corners is important so that you have a nice, now notice, look, this is bending a little bit around. You see how it's pulling a little bit? There's a curve there. I like that because when I put the ears back to back and glue them, it pulls everything back and really gives you a nice stretch finish, so that everything's tight and nothing's loose. So I intentionally want that pull of the cardboard so that it keeps everything where it needs to be. Okay, that's looking pretty good in my opinion. So now we have to finish off this bottom piece. So I take the glue gun, we're gonna run a dot at the corner and straight across the bottom there and onto the fabric. I wanna make sure that's tucked in so that when you grab this and pull, there's not a lot of fabric there. So you're gonna just, you're gonna gently ease it into the glue like that. Pull it around the corner, make it nice and taut, okay? Now if you have a little snidgy like that, you can cut it off. It'll help make it less bulky. Okay, so there's our first ear. Now remember, this is only half an ear, so if it doesn't seem as puffy as you would like it to be, remember there's going to be another half on the other side. So I am going to repeat this process with all 3 ears, and then I will be back to do the next step. Okay, so there we have our 4 ears. Sometimes when you're done, you may just redistribute some of make sure they're even. What I like to do is I like to try to pair them up, make sure that they're evenly fluffed. Sometimes you get a little overzealous with the fluffing, and okay. So we're gonna glue these together in 2 stages. The first stage, I'm gonna start and put a generous amount of glue in this basically center section here. I'm gonna line that up, and then I'm gonna start to pinch it together. So now because of the pulling, see you have this sort of Pac-Man gap here. So we're gonna wanna close that too before we talk about adding in any of our cord. And we'll talk about cord in just a minute. So I just go around and I gently drop some glue in and pinch. And you're gonna hold it there for a little minute or so. You want it completely dry. You're gonna be careful. I've got a little glue leaking out there. You wanna be careful that you're not pitching it so hard that the glue bubbles above the surface, because you want that ravine in there nice and open so that the cord eventually lays flat in that ravine. Okay, so we've got our 2 sets of ears glued together here, and you double check. We've got pretty good tightness there, pretty good tightness there. So let's talk about trim, because this is unsightly. Now, I've seen a lot of people use flat ribbon to cover this up. And I think for me, flat ribbon only works if you're using the foam ears. The foam ears have a thick edge to them, and so they have a flat surface kind of running up, and they're not stuffed usually. So for me, if you're using flat ribbon on this kind of an ear, it looks cheap, like you're covering something. And we are covering something, but the trick is to not make it look like we're covering something. So I prefer a cord. I've got an assortment of cords here. And I was thinking, originally I was thinking about doing, you know, because what we're going to do is we're going to cord the top of this, and then where the ear meets the band, we're going to cord around that. So I thought of doing a different color on each, but it's a lot of color for my eye. We've got plenty going on here. So I picked some neutrals. Originally I had thought about this blue, which I really like. This brand of cord that Simplicity makes is one of my favorites to use. It's a very shiny cord with like a beaded element worked woven into it. And this is this is a 1/4 inch, and that's about the size you really want. Because look, you want it to look like it's blended into that seamlessly. This black and white cord that I have is 3/16 of an inch. I've gotten away with it before, but as you can see, you really need a tight ear, and you can make that work. It's not my favorite, but you certainly could make that work. And then I pulled this out too, which kind of has a silver beaded element, and this one is also not a 1/4 inch. It's 0.2 inches, so it's close. But I'm not sure. It's a lot for my blood, the silver. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's you. So I'm going to save this. So what I'm going to settle on here is one of my kind of go-tos, but in just solid black. The beading does get untwisted sometimes. It can be slightly annoying at that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip it here, and I'm going to put a little dollop of glue right down the rim there, just to hold it. I'm going to layer a small amount of glue in the kind of crevice there, and then gently lay the ribbon on top. And then I'll usually lay, again, just a dollop of glue into there just to keep it from unraveling while I work on the next ear. So there we are, beaded, filling in the gaps. Looks sharp, looks crisp. Let's do the next one. Okay, so we have our 2 ears here finished, fluffed, ready to go. Now, on the D23 packet that they give you, there is a paper that has a trace out of a headband with the 2 ears that help you with placement. Feel free to use that. I do it by eye and then measure a little bit here as we go. Try to leave a couple of inches gap for the bow. I don't want them sitting too far down the side, and then I usually kind of measure just a little bit that way. Now, gluing these onto the headband is a couple of stage process. So take your ear. You've got a wider gap here because we didn't seal this through. I tend to put a layer and let it drip into there so that we have a base. Come on, glue stick. And then I do an outside layer, and then another outside layer, making sure. Now a little bit of leakage around the ear is okay on this because we're going to cover it, but you don't want it to be gloppy. And so before I dry it on, I let that get tacky just for maybe 15 seconds, just so it's not hot and runny. And this is my method and my madness. Plunk it there and plunk it there. I get it right in the center, and then I just hold it and pinch it for, you know, maybe a minute up to 2. I try to keep it tipped upside down so that if the glue is going to run, it's going to run back down into the ear and not squish out over the edges of the headband, which not only will look ugly, but will also be a sure way for you to burn your fingers. You will feel the headband getting hot from the glue underneath, but you want that to set. That's the first layer we're going to put on, and I'll talk about the second layer as we get there. Okay, so we have our ears glued on and they are drying. Now, turns out I used more of this than I thought. I made 3 ears on a last project. So, and I thought I had another black ribbon. So we're gonna pivot a little bit. Sometimes we do that. And either looking at that one, or where's my little pin in this one? Or we're looking at that one. And I feel like for pride, the shiny black and silver wins for me. So the second part of our gluing is we're gonna sort of cover up this bottom seam here and also provide some more stability to it. So essentially our goal is we're gonna wrap this around the base of our ear. You want to start on the inside of the ear with the open end because you're gonna want the smooth end on the outside where people will see it. The bow will sit here in the middle and will cover up where the 2 ends are meeting. So that'll kind of hide that. And I'm gonna pump a layer of glue from here into this ravine that's kind of organically here. And it's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna allow us to lay the cord into there nicely, but also it's gonna provide another stability of back and forth glue support. So let's do that. And then you're gonna cut right at the tip there, and we're gonna put a little dollop in the middle. What we're gonna do is we're gonna push. Sometimes you may need the scissors so that you don't burn. And you're just gonna tuck that all in and hold it for a minute just to finish it off. And while it's not as unsightly as all that, definitely having the bow in the middle will cover it up and will make it even crisper. So there's one side. We're gonna do the same to the other. I've cleared my workstation a little bit. Got my bow piece and gonna want to bring the long side up to the middle. Kind of get those even. This part can overlap just so slightly. Press everything flat. And I put a little dot of glue there. And then I come to one side. I just kind of pinch this open. And I do a little tiny thin line down the side. And a dot for the seal. And we just press that flat to the edge. And we do this again on this side. Now, every once in a while, you get a little wayward something here. Let's give it a little old nippity new. All right. And drop that just again. A tiny thin line of glue. I'll let that sit. Dot there for the overlap. Press that in. Later you can clean up your little spider threads of glue. Okay, so now that we've got that done, you can press it if you want at this point. I generally don't. I just don't. So you're gonna want to fold again to the center. Now this time you want 2 equal halves, so you may have to get a little fiddly with this part until you you want them basically, I don't like it overlapping in the middle because I think it makes the center too bulgy. So I like to really just have them like that. Let's pull this down. So there we go. That's a little bit better. What do you think about that? Yeah. Okay. So I do a little dollop on the end here. And, at this point, I'm just kind of basically rubbing the glue so it's like a little smear of glue and not, you know, and not a lot of gloppy glops. And then I just do another little smear in the middle here, just. Okay, so now we've got our pattern. You are going to want something for the centerpiece. I have got this ribbon that I'm going to use that fits our theme. You could cut it out of the same fabric. You'd probably cut about a 2-inch little strip, and then I fold and glue over the ends, and then you just use that as your centerpiece. Ribbon in general works nice, so if I wasn't using this rainbow ribbon, I might just use like a black piece of ribbon for the center. And now we're gonna do a little accordion fold. And I try to get 5 of them out of that, so we get something. You might play around with the bow a little bit. But not bad, huh? So I then go in between each layer and do a dot and do a dot. Pinchy, pinch, pinch, pinch. I'm gonna flip it over, and we've got 3 on the back side here. Do a dot, do a dot, do a dot. Now there are many different methods to this bow, so if this is not a bow that suits you, definitely look for others. There are, you know, shapes and sizes and textures and all kinds of things. So the center is going to get wrapped, and I usually center it on the bottom. I wrap it once or twice. I try to make sure that it's even before I go too far. And then I come back, and we're gonna put a little drizzle under there. Center that. Again, making sure that we are pretty centered and even on this. Cut. Sometimes it shifts as you're doing it. You should be able to Now the reason I don't like to press it a little bit is because I feel like if I don't, it has a softer, rounder, fluffier edge here and gives it a little bit more texture to me than sort of a really super crisp bow, but you do you. Okay, there's a bow. Okay, so we've got our ears, we've got our bow, we've got some possible accoutrement. So, you know, plunking that in the middle, super cute without a bow. Same with the scrump there. That could just sit there as something else. This I may tuck under the bow, so, you know, this is where I do a lot of experimenting. We hold the bow down, and then we've got stitch popping up from the back. Hello. Well, we know the bow's going on, so let's start with that. I use this E6000 because the bow, there's only a little bit of surface area, unlike the ears that are saturated in support for the glue. The bow really is only getting dolloped here on the bottom. So here's what I do, and I do the same thing with these figures if I use them. I use both hot glue and E6000. The E6000 takes 24 hours to like cure basically, and you don't want to hold your ear for that long. So I put a little bit of this E6000. This you can get at Walmart, Michael's, Joann's, basically any crafty place you want to go. And then I take my glue gun and I do a little outline in hot glue, because the glue gun is going to stick and dry immediately and hold it into place after, you know, a minute or 30 seconds. Let it get tacky, so you want to center it. Don't worry about how the bow is being squished. You'll fluff that out in a minute, and you're going to plunk that down, and you're going to just hold it firmly. Let that glue gun do its magic, and then overnight the E6000 will cure and set, and the bow will be really permanently nicely placed there. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put, he's got such tiny little feet, so we're going to put a dollop there, and a dollop there. Now you can get a little messy with the front of these feet because they're going to actually tuck behind the ribbon, so you won't actually see them, the bow I mean. And then I'm going to put my little bit of that on the back end here. Okay. And then let it cure. We're going to set it in there, push it up tight and hold it. So I'll be back with the final reveal. Okay, we are back to our regularly scheduled backdrop. I've got the ears here. I thought I'd show them off. It's been a little bit. Dun 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 dun. There they are. So we've got our pattern, got our bow and our little stitch. And you'll be forever picking glue pieces off. That's part of the game. Here is the back, super colorful and bright. One more trick, when you're letting this E6000 cure overnight, you want gravity in your favor, so you don't want to lay them flat. Something like a spray cooking bottle, because it's flat on top and the tension will pinch on the sides. This will be hard to do, not on a surface, but yeah, here we go. You can balance it just like that. That'll sit just like that overnight and be nice and flat, and it'll dry. So that's one little tip I have for you. So I am going to give these ears away. So if you would like these very specific ears for Stitch Pride, down in the comments, hashtag Stitch Pride, please. Leave me a comment below, and I'll keep this open until, I don't know, like Wednesday or so, and then we will draw a winner and get some ears sent out in the mail to you. I am not a big Stitch fan, although I like Stitch. I don't wear and collect a lot of Stitch, but I do love this Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And I think that's what Pride is really all about, just remembering everyone has a place to belong. So I would love to give these to you. Comment down below. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. We've got a lot of awesome content coming up soon, including some more pins. Year of the Ear for June is going to be super exciting, so you're not going to want to miss it. And I look forward to seeing you soon on the next Disney Afternoon.